This is Willow, and Willow doesn't have a lot of respect for the human's personal space or boundaries. And I think a lot of it is because she gets to tell the humans what to do. She jumps up on them to claim them when they come through the door. She nudges them for attention. She just saddles up whenever, and she kind of gets what she wants in a lot of regards. So I don't think she's petulant, but I think she doesn't see her humans as an authority figure. This is basically, I call this a leadership exercise. I developed this to help the humans practice the escalating consequences, which is the way that I disagree with dogs. And I also developed it to help the dog practice the human's leadership carrying, even if the human's farther away. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop a treat on the floor. She's not allowed to have it until she lays down. Now for a dog, sitting is a more subordinate position, laying down is a surrender position. So if a dog doesn't trust someone, they're going to stay standing because they want to be able to run, fight, or flight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the escalating consequences and then we're going to demonstrate the exercise. The first thing we want to do when the dog's doing something we don't want is we're going to hiss like a cat, like, and you see how I got her response. It's biologic for the dogs. They instinctively respond to it. I have 10 hisses. I have level 1 hiss, like it's at level 10, which is like I just did. So when I do that, I want to hiss preferably before the dog breaks the rule or the boundary. So the very first thing I'm going to do is hiss. Second thing I do is I stand up abruptly and turn to face the dog. Your authority goes whatever direction your hips are pointed at. I always tell people, imagine there's a string from your belly button to the dog's collar. So the dog walks over there, you pivot. Try to do it without moving your feet, but you can move your feet, just don't do a lot of little movements. But you're going to keep your hips pointed towards the dog and not let the dog know you have my full attention. Now I keep pivoting normally, not for this technique, but in general, I pivot towards the dog until the dog stops moving, stands, sits, or lies down. As soon as it stops moving, I take 2 steps backwards to tell the dog that's what I wanted. And then I put a period at the end of the sentence by pausing for 1 second. If I just go, and I just turn to walk away, it looks like I'm meandering about. So what I would do is, if I'm doing this, I would stand up, I turn and face the dog stops moving, and then I would move. I listed a little bit, I wouldn't list. But when you step backwards, again, only 2 steps. Boom, boom. A lot of people do it like this. They're like, I put a Wonder Woman cock in their hip or whatever. So don't do any of those things. Just 2 steps, pause 1 second, and then go back to doing what you're doing. The third consequence is to march directly at the dog. Front facing is confrontational to a dog. So I'm going to march directly at the dog. Now, if you march at the dog and it marches back a mile, but it's still facing you, it's still challenging. So when you march at the dog, I want the dog to think, if I'm still here when the human gets here, the human is running me over. So I have a little bit of suddenness in my step, and I stop moving as soon as the dog turns sideways or greater. At that point, I stop, and then I complete my movement, and I go to the second consequence. I'm pivoting as the dog moves around. Once it's stationary, and then I can go back to doing what I was doing. That's the third escalating consequence. I developed this exercise to help the humans practice the escalating consequences and also help the dog practice respecting and listening to the human. When I do this, I'm going to have 2 treats. One of them I'm going to toss to get the dog to move away from me. The rule is the dog's not allowed to come within 3 feet of the treat that I'm going to drop on the floor between my feet. Now you have to drop it. Don't place it and don't put it here and walk up over it. Dogs' eyes are very good for movement, so we want to drop it about that distance so the dog can see it. Now, once I drop it, the dog's not allowed to come within 3 feet, and I determine the 3 feet, usually by holding my fingers out. So imagine there's a line on the floor, a circle on the floor. She is not allowed to violate it. She can walk around it, but if she approaches and she's going to violate it, I'm going to hiss at her. Once she violates it, I'm going to step directly at her. Now, sometimes when you're doing this particular exercise, you might hiss and step at the same time, which you can combine them to make a stronger message. Now, once I drop it, I'm going to keep my hips pointed at her until she stops moving. When she's stationary and looking at me, I'm going to take 2 steps backwards. And I'm going to wait for, if I'm the dog and she's like looking at me like this, I'm going to wait until she does this and looks back at me. Then I would take 2 steps. Only move away when she's looking at you, and just 2 steps at a time. When she sits down, I want to take a giant step backwards. When she sits, she's saying, I'm challenging you for the treat less, and I want to say, I appreciate that by moving myself further away. And then she's not allowed to have it until she does what she's doing here, is laying down. Now, she won't know that. We've actually already been practicing a little bit, but she won't know that at first. But as soon as she starts laying down, if the treat's here, I'm going to turn sideways. I'm going to be 3 feet away from it. I'm going to crouch down, and then I'm going to tap. When I tap, she can come over and take it. And when she does and licks it up, I'm going to say the word booty. Eventually, we don't have to walk over and do the kneeling down. Eventually, we'll be sitting down while we're doing this once she's practiced it enough. All right, so let me go ahead and explain this. It's a little bit easier when you see it in real time. All right, so I'm gonna take the first treat, make sure she's watching. I toss it over there. She goes over and gets it. I get down, get ready to drop the treat. When she looks at me, I drop it. She already sits down, so I take a step backwards. She's looking at the treat. She's kind of objectifying the treat. I'm waiting for her to look at me. She looks at me, I take a step backwards. You might want to take a couple steps that way so you get a better angle of both. Nope, walk over towards your bedroom. That way you can see her and me in the shot at the same time. Now I'm just waiting quietly. There we go. So she turns sideways. So I approach. I'm 3 feet away. And I'm crouching down. Now we've already been practicing this, so just because I crouch down doesn't mean she gets it. And at first she was coming trying to get it. But now she's learned it's not until I tap the floor. And I'm going to say the word booty every time she licks it up. Eventually we don't have to crouch down. We can be over there, toss it, and then you can walk over and do your stuff once she's really gotten it. And then you say, booty. Now you can pet her afterwards if you want, but this is a reward for her. And this is, and she has to earn the reward. She doesn't just get it. This teaches her that challenging the human does not get your way. The human will always outlast you. That's one of the dirty secrets to dog behavior. If you're inconsistent and you let the dog win, you're making the dog challenge you more the next time you do that. And this happens a little bit day by day, and after a while, the dog will challenge you for a half an hour. So you're the guardian. I want to, for the next 30 days, to outlast the dog every single time, whatever it is. And the more you do that, after a while, you'll hit a tipping point, and the dog will start giving you what you want faster and faster and faster because it knows that you're not going to give up. All right, I'm going to do this one more time because she's got it pretty quick, and this will probably be pretty quick. I'm waiting for her to look at me, take a big step backwards, looks back up at me, I take another step. Now, if the dog, this is a good, I think she's got an LAY over there. So I hissed before she broke the 3-foot boundary. This is actually good practice. Now she hasn't quite figured out the LAY. As soon as they do, they start LAYing immediately. Spelling it out because I don't want her to know. All right, so now I'm not going to crouch down because we've been practicing a little while. Booty. But you saw that little bit of hesitation. Am I allowed to get this or not allowed to get this? You just said no. Is this a trick question? No. It's when I say yes, it's yes. When I say no, it's no. Don't infer what you guess that I'm doing. Wait for me to give you the actual command. Now, when I first do it, I would do it just like we described. After a while, when the dog starts laying down right away, wherever they are in the room, then I would start adding a little bit of time. Once she lays down, I'm going to wait 5 seconds. Then I'm going to go over and tap and say booty. Then I wait to 10 seconds. And if actually, when I'm doing this, we have a family environment here, so I'd have each member of the family that the dog does not listen to. Dog listens to dad pretty good, so dad might not need to do this as much as mom does, and the kids. But basically, we want to start elongating that period of time. So at first, I LAY, and then I go wait 5 seconds, and then I go over and give me the booty word. And then everybody does it for 5 seconds. Then we do 10 seconds, everybody does 10, everybody does 15. Then I go 15, 30, 45, 1 minute, and I go by 1 minute increments up to 5 minutes. You want to get done with this exercise within about a week, so you want to practice this multiple times. There's 2 children and the wife, and so we're probably practice this each person maybe 2 or 3 times a day for the next week. You'll get up to the point where you drop it on the floor, and the dog goes over and lays down and understands, I can't get that without the human signing off on it and giving me permission to get it. Remember, always say the word booty after she licks it up. Anytime you give your dog a treat, you want to say the command word right after the treat goes into the dog's mouth, and that helps connect the two. This is a leadership exercise I developed about 10 years ago to help your dog listen to you and help the human better communicate with their dog.